goodness the movie we're talking about today isn't a lying movie. I was concerned about whether or not The Big Clock was going to have a big clock. I know the novel it's based on, from what I hear, doesn't have a big clock.
It's not Big Ben either.
Yeah, so I really appreciate the film that I'm watching not lying to me. You know, it's kind of going back to The Apartment. Hey, The Apartment had an apartment in it. The Big Clock has a big clock in it. I'm just so happy.
And if you want to know if Kyle ever was going to run a publication and murder people, he'd probably be a Janeth.
Yeah. Welcome back to the show. I'm one of your hosts, Janeth.
And I'm Nick for the St. Paul Filmcast. Thanks again for watching. Thanks again for finding us. And for our loyal fans, thank you to continue to support the show. I'm always going to trip on that. You can check out the Patreon for some great deals to check us, tell us what to do. And today we're going to talk about, actually, this is probably your first time seeing it. This is one of my favorite under-the-radar noirs. And we do have a copy of it.
Yeah.
The Big Clock.
Yeah, check it out
It
in our
has a
video.
clock on it, right? Yeah. So, what the heck's going on with the Big Clock?
So when the head of a popular magazine magnate commits a murder and places blame on an innocent man he can't identify, he enlists an associate of his, George Stroud, who has just one problem. He is the unidentified innocent man being targeted. Now Stroud has to play both angles in order to escape unscathed.
So it's based on a considered like a best-selling book at the time, and it was one of those like a bidding war for the rights, and when it came out it was a big hit, but then actually just kind of went away with a vapor. There's been 2 adaptations to this movie. One was in France, and the other one was from 1987, No Way Out, with Kevin Costner and Gene Hackman.
Yeah,
we have probably watched that one too.
Back to our discussion on titles that don't lie. I'm concerned if Police Python 357 actually has a policeman or a python or 357 Magnum in it. Discuss. But my first time watching The Big Clock. To be honest, I found the title, I found the poster, and I was a little nervous. I thought this was going to be boring, just because it looked a little boring on the outset. The movie started. It had that classic opening, like, let me tell you how I got here. Like how they always like show like a person who's about to die. Like, let me tell you how I ended up in this position.
It's probably if you want to label it a noir, it's pretty much just because of the beginning. It's very noir.
Because I don't think he actually has a voiceover monologue any other point other than the opening of the movie, right?
The whole beginning of him and avoiding the security, that stuff, and then the narration,
Yeah, because I'm going to pick on you, because, like, the movies you love, they all have a certain way about them, at least at the beginning. 5 minutes in, I was like, no wonder Nick picked this one. But all that being said, I found the film mostly entertaining. I was really kind of in on what was going on. It takes a little bit to set itself up. That would be like my concern was as it was kind of maneuvering through, because again, I try not to look up the plot of the movie before I see it.
No.
So I was kind of wondering, when are we getting to the plot? And it does take a little bit, but I think that's partly because it's setting up its chess pieces.
Yeah,
and you need
it does take a long time for setting up the chess pieces, and it takes a long time to introduce Charles Laughton. This is the first time I think you've seen Charles Laughton.
First time other than, I forgot he was in the Isle of Dr. Moreau adaptation that he was in. I just saw that last year. But no, this was the first more generally seen, I guess, leading performance from him.
The reason I like Charles Laughton is because he gives you the acting performance that you think you need. You don't really want, maybe that you want, but he's going to give you what you think you need for this role. And he is so suave the whole time. I mean, he's wearing his hat like this, and and the great intro of the board meeting, because he's running the whole company and the whole coming in and.
I get the sensation Charles Laughton is kind of like John Wayne, where he is actually playing himself a lot of the time, because suaveness has to be his thing. I mean, he did marry Elsa Lanchester. I mean,
and she's in this too. Yeah.
He was able to catch himself quite a win and gal there. But I think Charles Laughton is one of those ownership actors, where unfortunately for everyone else in the scene, when he's there, he's in charge of the scene. Everything is on him. It's not his fault. He's just very charismatic, even as an undercurrent. Even when he's just expositing for multiple minutes on end. He's an enigmatic person to watch on screen. And it's no wonder that he finally got a chance to direct, even though it was only one film, that because he's just very character capable.
And I do like his character. It's very punctual, on the rigorous time schedule. Everything has in an office. Everything has a home.
Yep.
And I mean, he's mad. And the only reason he's mad at his mistress in his office because he's gonna disparage his papers.
Yep.
You're gonna disorder them, and then get the hell out of here.
You could fault some of that on the nose, like because there's a big clock, he's very punctual. Like you could fault it for that a little bit. I think that fits in with the tone. Because the film is kind of comedic. You know, there's like a sense of fast talking, high trousers.
Yeah. That's the only reason Elsa Lancaster's in it is comedy relief. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I was like, I was more interested in the serious elements of the film than I was in the comedy, because the comedy kind of felt like an afterthought. Yeah. You know, like I'm more interested in how are you going to. It's almost like it felt very like reverse Die Hard, where like. He's the John McClane, but he's also the guy that everyone's hunting for. You know, and he's trying to escape the building. Like I like the single setting that we get most of the latter half of the film in, because he can't leave, but he's also the person everyone's looking for, but he's the one looking for himself. Like there's all these layers of the narrative that are really, really solidly put together.
Yeah, because Janet is planting him as the murderer, and he's trying to like find out who. You know, I'm going to try to get you to, uncover that you did it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I like the elements of I'm hunting myself. I think we would see a lot of films that do that kind of cat and mouse angle to it, where he's playing the cat and the mouse. And, like how I kind of figured you got a dual sense of that with The Departed later on. In Infernal Affairs, where you have like the two cats and the two mice, and the two cats are the two mice for each other.
Right.
That's kind of how this film, and then Charles Laughton is basically the signature mouse that we're not looking for, but we know is responsible.
Yeah. So Janeth Publications runs a different variety of publication newspapers, and then Ray Milland runs the Crime Waves.
Yeah.
And of course, at Janeth, we have to discover trends before trends. And if you don't find it, invest all this money. It's sheer waste if you don't figure it out. And what interesting is Ray Milland is using pre-profiling.
Yeah.
Irrelevant clues. So he tries to find what they call the movie irrelevant clues, but actually he's setting a profile who this person is, and then these this person, this fugitive, we caught him before the cops did because we figured out he's obsessed with shell collecting.
Yeah.
And so he went here and all this stuff, and they have a billboard and everything. It's kind of interesting that this is all FBI profiling.
That's true, because I mean he does when you actually pause and like zoom in for a second on what that board says. There's like the most silly, like small end kind of information being relayed, but I was in shock because it was successful. Like a lot of the stuff that's on the boards for the people he's looking for are funny because it's stuff you wouldn't think to be important, and of course it is.
Especially for a crime movie, because I think it's a little ahead of its time.
And it's a 40s crime movie.
A 40s crime movie, because it's like Die Hard. It's a little more like FBI mind hunters and everything. And if the book does it a little more open, but the movie doesn't. Both Ray Milland's character and Janet's character are having an affair with the same mistress. Mm-hmm. And they don't really hit it over the head with the book. The movie, it's almost like they just run into each other.
Yeah, it seems like Stroud in the film is more like I'm in the wrong place at the wrong time. Like I'm just hanging out with her, or she kind of like hires him for a job in some ways. Where she's like, I want to help you. I want to help myself get rid of Janet. I'm going to hire you to do this. I never felt like there was a like intentional sexual moment between the two.
No,
even though like it was accidental because it's an attractive guy and an attractive lady, and they're both hanging out in the scene, and they go back to her home at the middle of the night. Well, he's supposed to be with his wife, so like there's that like unintentional feeling of it.
Yes.
But it's interesting that it's in the book the other way.
It's the other way. They both have an affair with the same woman, and then she ends up dead by Janet. Which I love that scene. That does seem when he kills her with that sundial thing.
Yeah.
He kills her with a sundial thing, but then he looks up and oh, what I did.
Yeah.
It's the greatest thing because it's not great acting. It's great Charles Laughton acting.
Yeah.
That he gets away with, like, oh.
Yeah. He plays to the movie he's in, but I think that's also him. I really do. I'm convinced that.
And then that nervous little tick, like, which is just a nothing, and he's boiling.
And then he kind of has this element of like, I've got to find out who did this, and he has a way where he's convinced himself that he's hunting the killer. You know, where he's like, I've got to find the guy who did this, and I actually personally believe that it's not me. Which I'm sure a lot of people who have committed horrible acts have convinced themselves. The mind can convince itself of a whole lot of stuff.
Hey, hats off to him. She actually did throw that thing at him and intentionally missed him, and he didn't flinch.
No, he didn't.
That was pretty good. Yeah.
Could have gotten Lawton right in the head.
The other thing is, I do like the set direction, this art production design. I do like the office is very Art Deco.
Yeah.
I mean, there's chairs attached to the desks. It's that very clean, spacious Art Deco set design.
I had this moment where I was thinking of the clamp building from the Gremlins movie, where it was like an office that was like ahead of its time. That was like 5 years in the future at all times. At first I thought it was an undersetting.
Yeah.
I thought it was like, why aren't they setting the dressing better than they are? Like, why isn't it more opulent? But then I realized that's the point. Is it's like overtly efficient. There's nothing there that's not needed to be there, which is kind of how a lot of our office building lifestyle has changed in the past several decades. Is that it's getting rid of all the emotion and we're just here to do the work. So in that way, I guess it's again another one of those ahead of its time. That's why I felt the film when I looked it up and I saw that it was like 1948.
Yes,
I was more surprised than anything else because the actors feel like they're 40s actors, but they're in any movies that feels like it's a 60s movie.
It does a little more, like he says, we're trying to discover trends before trends.
Yeah, the film was.
The film was too, right? And let's talk about, because this is Elsa Lanchester. If you didn't know that, she's the bride of Frankenstein.
Yep.
And she actually gets to talk. We're so used to her not talking.
Yeah, she only speaks when she's Mary Wollstonecraft Shelley at the beginning of Bride of Frankenstein.
And she has this wonderful little giggle laugh that I love it. But she provides the comic relief of an artist. And I just like, did you make a sketch for it? It's so avant-garde, surreal sketch that, I think I captured it. Right?
I enjoyed that throughout the film. The good guy has good friends. It kind of what I felt throughout the film is you tend to see in these I'm not the killer, but I've got to evade until I am. He keeps finding people that don't believe him. In most other movies that do this, I'm a hunted man and I've got to find someone who I can trust. In this film, it's kind of like we believe you. We believe that you're an upstanding citizen and we're going to help support you here. We're going to help save you. That's how he kind of a good person has good friends who help him out of a jam. Throughout this film, a lot more than I expected.
And Janet has kind of a Waiting Smithers kind of a guy for him.
Yeah, he's the hired friend, if you will.
Right, yeah. What do you mean you're not going to take a vacation? Well, yes.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of trend settings from this movie that you'll see from later works of the office deco art, the office building, kind of like an inspiration for a little bit of Die Hard. I didn't catch that until you mentioned that before. If you didn't know it, director John Merrow and Maureen Sullivan, this is where they met, and they had a baby named Mia Farrow.
Yeah.
So this is how Mia Farrow came into this world.
Well, and it's interesting to point out, I saw my first John Farrow film last month. When I was prepping for our John Wayne film, I watched Hondo.
Oh yeah, that's right.
In prep for the John Wayne episode on
I forgot he did that.
Yeah, and so I saw that, and then when this came up, I was like, I've seen one of his movies already, because that is kind of a blind spot for me. Is like the 30s, 40s, and 50s. If it wasn't horror, I kind of didn't see it. So this is kind of a blind spot for me. So I was very happy that I was able to say I can compare these two now. But it is we have those two that were paired up. We have Lawton and Lanchester that were paired up. There must have been a lot of date nights throughout that time period on set.
I want to mention, because you think of this movie, it's going to be a lot of just set the camera and just go. But there's a lot of swift, moving, elegant camera movements for this film that you didn't really think that's going to happen. Especially when Ray Milland hides in the stairwell and you see Charles Lawton come in. That's a deep focus view. And there's when Charles Lawton comes in the office and you see the elevator and he lifts up the camera and goes in this constantly moving the camera around.
That's true.
There's a lot of exploratory camera in this work, and you didn't really expect to see in 1948.
And what was interesting is that it didn't feel flashy, notice me at any point.
Not really.
There was more moments that I rewound and rewatched, and then on the second time watching a scene was able to catch the clever cinematography that was at play. It was never the cinematography is trying to be noticeable. We tend to think movies now what's going to win at the Oscars is going to be the movie with the flashiest cinematography. That's look at this cool camera angle.
Yeah.
And that's not how this movie was. Is every camera shot seemed to be in aid of telling the story.
Yes, and it doesn't seem flashy, but it seems necessary because you have to, bring Charles Lawton in. You gotta have to. He's dominating the scene. He's going to everything right.
Yeah.
So.
He is unintentionally, stealing the show in every single moment he's in, so the camera has to reflect that without, again, stealing its own, stealing the show from the actors. And I think you don't have that in the 40s in the same way that you do now, where it's we have to try and make the best cinematography is the cinematography you don't notice, much like visual effects music. That's
why they got away with Forrest Gump.
Yeah.
Right. It went best as soon as he did the montage of when he talked about Jenny and all the different settings and environments. You're like, you want best cinematography just because you captured everything.
Because you don't realize that the scene is changing and evolving constantly because of the cinematography. And the best cinematographer knows when to move and when to stand still, because there is a difference in how the scene is portrayed that way. And this, this is by John F. Seitz, who did Double Indemnity, Sunset Boulevard, was able to tell when to keep the camera still. When to move it.
And when you want to do a noir, then you hire him.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, maybe that goes back to your point about accidental.
It's a
noir.
great set. I love all the set. It really the authentic, the big, it's the cylinder tells every clock time in the world. All the talk about clock and punctual. What if the clock runs out of battery? Oh, he'll never have that. Yeah.
The only sad part about it is that you're inside this building for, I would say, about 60% of the movie.
Yeah.
And we don't spend that much time focusing on the running out the clock scenario that's playing out.
Not really.
Like, because I hate to say it, because the movie is on the nose with, it's called The Big Clock, there's a big clock, we're constantly like being on the nose about time. We never flash back to the clock that often to showcase the passage of time while he's stuck in this situation. And I think that might have created something more, because really we get the whole part where he's like, 36 hours ago I was a different person. So we know there's a time period. Watching the film the whole time I was cognizant of that time period as it moved through. But the clock didn't play much of a point in that. I was hoping that it would play more involvement there. Yeah. So again, it all comes down to, I enjoyed the film. I just got some nitpicks, some things that didn't work for me as well.
There's a little bit of selling it, right?
Yeah.
You expected a little bit something different. And I do like the intro, because that's it's a little, the lights are off, but you got this marble lobby, and you're playing cat and mouse with the security guard. And then the reason why we're talking about this is because it takes place in April, 2 days in April, and then, the dreams, it's April 24th. What the Wayne's World did, the dream sequence.
Yeah.
So. But yeah, overall, I think it's a little more too talky.
Okay.
Especially it's a little bit more. For a movie that's 90, maybe a little more an hour and a half.
95, yeah.
I'm sure the dialogue script is thick as heck.
Probably, yeah.
It's a little more talky.
Like I said, of the time, you have a lot of that fast talking, high trousers interactions where everyone's, doing the see kind of a discussion. I wasn't too bothered by that. I think the film takes a bit of time to get set up. I think just small tightening of that first act, just small pieces where can we trim a second here, can we trim a moment here to just get the action going a bit quicker. I was very interested in, it's one of those movies where I didn't think it could get any worse for our character. And then there's a clever story beat that twists the film even more. There was a lot of moments when I was thinking to myself, not this, no, like what's happening? Which you don't expect to see in a film that feels like it's very straightforward. Yeah. So I was very taken with the twists and the turns. I liked our principal characters.
It did have a little bit of a LA Confidential moment where he gave an alias, Jefferson Randolph, and Janet says that name, and then he realizes, oh no.
That's true. Kaiser Soze, Jefferson Randolph.
He says that name, and all of a sudden you recognize, oh no.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I didn't even think about that comparison there.
Little name drop. I love that. Yeah.
The non-existent killer. That there's a whole subgenre, isn't there?
Naming a really good name of a non-existent. Yeah, I like all those names, right?
Yeah, Jefferson Randolph felt to me like one of those guys that, like when you name him, you're like, is that some like model that we see in movies, like one of those kind of like sculpted men kind of a thing, like Charles Atlas.
That's right. I'm picking a guy that runs a country club and looking for his 5-iron.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so I'm really clever. Hopefully, I want to find some other people that have seen this movie. Have you seen The Big Clock? I really want you to reach out to us, because there's a lot of people who don't know about this movie.
Yeah. Have you seen The Big Clock? Have you seen Police Python 357 or No Way Out?
No Way Out's really fantastic.
If you have connections to one of those films, let us know. Or maybe you've read the book. Even if you haven't seen the film, we'd love to hear from you about your interactions with movies that are around this movie and that kind of stuff.
I think the book is third narration, like you get character's point of view.
Okay.
On certain moments in time.
Third narration, the best kind of narration. But let us know your thoughts on the film down below. Do you have another John Farrow film that we should cover next time? Do you want me to go back and watch Hondo again? I'll do it. I enjoyed it. So let us know your thoughts on the film down below and what you think we should cover next in the realm of The Big Clock and John Farrow or Charles.
I think we should go No Way Out. Yeah, it's a really good one.
While you're down there, please consider liking and subscribing. It's a small thing that you can do. It takes 2 seconds, doesn't cost you a dime. It helps support the channel, and make sure you never miss an episode, because we have new ones Mondays, Thursdays, and our show Scary Movie Saturdays on Saturdays. And you can always find those episodes by clicking subscribe. But hey, if you can sacrifice a cup of coffee every single month, consider clicking on the Patreon down below. And you can join the Patreon, get access to our show Picks with Kyle and Nick that we have every single month. Get access to our exclusive content on there, and help us pick the episodes that we're going to talk about next. Because there's a lot of movies and only 2 of us. So we'd rather have you do some picking for us.
There's a lot of movies. Yeah.
There's a lot of them. So once again, guys, thanks for joining us, and you can find my film reviews over at goatfilmreviews.com.
You can find my podcast, the St. Paul Filmcast, anywhere you find podcasts where I interview independent local filmmakers of the Twin Cities area.
Yes, and look for our new paper, Crime Wave, coming soon. My name is Janet.
So you can set your clock to that.
Oh,
Hey, there you